December, the one and only December meeting of the school board to order, and welcome everyone. No one has signed up yet to address the board, but is there anyone that wishes to speak to the board? Alrighty, we'll proceed. I would entertain a motion to approve our agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Great, thank you. Strategic plan and action celebrating successes, project-based learning. Dr. Gross?
Thank you very much. Tonight what we thought we would do is just share some information with you around PBL, or project-based learning, an opportunity that we've provided to our staff through professional development, who then have worked with staff to help them actually work with the strategic plan and how do we implement the 21st century skills across the district, and at the same time embed very engaging opportunities for our students. And we have a group of people here tonight to share with you. I'm going to introduce Jodelle Teichen, who is our Director of Standards-Based Education, and then she's going to share some information with you and introduce the rest of the team. So thank you very much.
Okay. Anymore, because I'm, all right. So project-based learning, as Bob said, PBL, we call it in the district, is really just a way to frame instruction. And so really we've been making kind of a concerted effort the last 3 years to train our teachers in really thinking about their lesson plans and units in a way that's really getting at that big picture of why are we learning this and making those connections, those authentic connections. And so in the last 3 years, we have been working hard at offering some training every summer for our staff, and actually the last 2 years done that collaboratively with Moorhead and West Fargo districts through our Metro partnership. So we have 214 teachers who've been trained in project-based learning. They've actually gone through the 3-day training in the summer, and many more who've done pieces of that as part of training within their own buildings or working with their peers. And then we also have a Metro PBL website. So Fargo, Moorhead, and West Fargo teachers who participate in that 3-day training put their projects on a central website. And there's 95 projects on there now, and that's actually continuing to grow as we speak because there's teachers that are engaging that over the school year as well. So a place where they can really get ideas from each other. And tonight you're going to learn a little bit about a couple of those projects that have been happening across the district. So I'm going to turn it over to the people that you really want to talk to.
I'm Amy Soma, and I'm the library coordinator for the district. And I guess about a month ago, I had the fun joy of being out at Ed Clap to work with this 3rd grade class on the first day that they started their publishing phase and getting on the computer for a magazine project. So when Jodelle asked me if I knew of anybody that might be a good fit for presenting to the board, I said, these kids are awesome. So I want to introduce Matt Evenson, who is the librarian at Ed Clap, and Stephanie Schuster, who is the 3rd grade teacher who has the magazine project going, and they have Preston with them to talk a little bit about their magazine project.
Hello. I think this is more than I expected when I started the magazine project, actually. Oh, let's see, what do I have to do here? Oh, okay. Now you can see how much I needed Matt. So when I was working with, as I start to work with my 3rd graders, I think these are the standards that I need to teach. And if I would have said, this is what we're learning today, what would you have said?
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. And so I had to think about what my students really loved to do that we'd already done. And one of the things is we had redesigned and engineered some anemometers. So in our science, we had thought, oh, these anemometers, when we took them out, we built them just like they said in the book. They were beautiful, as you see. And then we took them out into the North Dakota wind, and they blew through the neighborhood of Ed Clap. And so we spent some time redesigning that, and the kids loved it. They loved being able to redesign a shelter for how we would work with flooding and hurricanes. So they loved that, and they loved working with helping others with the Fill the Dome posters in our school. So then when I thought about all of the things that they love to do, I thought, how can we think of a problem that we're having in our school so that this is real life to them? And so that's how the magazine project began. And so the students got something that looked like this with, we're a brand new school. And so we're missing what? Magazines.
Yeah.
And so Mr. Evenson helped us by talking about, you know, what we get a magazine every month from each subscription. And since we're a brand new school, and at this time it was October, beginning of November, we had 2 magazines from every single one, and how those really lasted a certain amount of time. So then we talked about what we would have to do in a magazine article.
And then these are some of these skills that I brought into the learning environment. I'm just kind of building off of some of those ideas that Mrs. Schuster just shared. Project-based learning always revolves around a problem. And it was interesting that the problem that Mrs. Schuster in her class presented was very, very real. I'm a new school, not many magazines, and not enough budget to buy magazines quickly. And so it was a very, very real problem to me and to the entire school. On the left side of the slide, you can see some of the technology skills that apply directly to 3rd grade, and you can kind of read through those. I also want to address these 21st century skills and also specifically what we did in each of those sub-skills between those 4 headings. So we have critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity. That top left blue box, under there, information and discovery was a huge common theme as far as what will your magazine look like, what will we have to use to get that information, and then how will you create that. Problem solving. We came across a lot of different times in the lab where things just didn't work, or they didn't work right away, or they didn't work how we thought they would. And I thought it was good for the students to see Mrs. Schuster and I, some things didn't work. They just didn't. It's good for students to see adults working together to problem solve. Collaboration on that top right corner, we have flexibility, going with the flow. Also responsibility and productivity, and collaborate using digital media. This project is almost completely based on Google Drive, Google Classroom, and Google Mail, which is, when you think of Preston being in 3rd grade and the other 3rd graders, that's pretty impressive, especially early in the 3rd grade year. The bottom left, communication, delivering oral presentations, which is kind of what we're doing, and also what Preston's going to share with us as well. Communicating using digital media. Those, I think you have samples in front of you, those were collaboratively made through Google Drive. And that's how we got their final project. And then creativity, idea generation. All we did is provide templates. That's it. Idea design and refinement, making it look how it should. Openness and courage to explore, starting over. Realizing your original idea may not have worked the right way. And creative production and innovation. So all these things were very relevant. If you look at the very bottom left of that 21st century skills, writing is layered in with all these skills, and writing to inform. These are nonfiction magazines. Writing to inform choice-based articles. That's all I have.
Preston was going to be part of a dynamic duo, and so he is just the one person who's going to share. So what did you like best about the project that was different than what we normally do?
Well, the best thing I liked about the project is when we were on the computers and we got to make color and tilt the board.
So we got to use the graphics to tilt some of the different types of things. Some of the kids got really involved in using the colors to make outlines and different fonts.
And my favorite part was my other favorite part was when we got to for the coloring. Yeah, the illustrations. I did like teams of who.
So an article on football and was able to do all of the teams that were involved in football. Yep. So, when we did that, we actually scanned the pictures in. The kids made the pictures, they scanned them in, and then they were able to edit and do some of that. And that was different and interesting and a little more graphically involved as the year goes on. So, awesome. What would we change the next time? Mr. Evenson and I talked about that, and we really liked the project a lot. So there were a lot of things that we wouldn't change. I think we learned a lot. And so one of the things, for instance, is the kids noticed it doesn't have a table of contents. We need a table of contents, don't we? So somebody is gonna have to do that. We don't have a back cover. So that's a huge problem with a magazine as well. So those are like things that we learned from this time that will change next time. Do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. How about you?
I don't think so.
So it was a really fun project. It was great learning for the kids. I think it was great learning for me. I think it was fun to collaborate with other professionals in the building and really watch the kids collaborate and learn from it as well. So.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
Okay, these magazines that you have are prototypes, because we knew that in order to go through the editing process, we were gonna have to check and see what the colors came out like. We were gonna have to see what the whole magazine looked like when we added it together. Some people's work didn't show up because their print might be the same color as their background. So anyway, we're finishing up those little pieces so that we have a product that's actually gonna go into the library.
Available for checkout. We'll add it to our records, and students from your class or 4th and 5th or 2nd grade, future 3rd graders can check them out and see what 3rd grade is doing. It's kind of fun.
That's fantastic, and so thank you, Mrs. Schuster and Mr. Evenson, but Preston, I want to congratulate you and your classmates, because that's part of what I do in my day job, and I'm here to tell you, you guys are doing really good work, so that's very impressive. So thank you, very good, very well done.
All right, so in addition, I'm Andrea Harmon. I am the secondary science curriculum facilitator. And in addition to talking about the project at the elementary level, we wanted to share a little bit with some of the other projects that have been going on a little bit this year. Most of them are actually current. There's a couple from last year as well. These are project cards that we have been asking our teachers to create going through the PBL process. Because it's a really great place to be able to showcase their work rather than having people go on and look at that website. We can have these out for you guys to be able to take a look at some of the projects and the experiences the kids are having. So we have a wide range in here. We've got some that are elementary, we've got all the way through high school. So this is a great place for our kids, our teachers, to be able to show off a little bit of their work. And so one of the processes that we're doing is, in addition to that website, that they're creating that actually have projects for people to use, we also are asking them to create these project cards throughout their time during training, and then also through our PBL checkpoints that we're doing to give an opportunity for teachers to be able to continue developing projects throughout the year. So it's a really great way for us to be able to show off them. And speaking of showing off them, we kind of put together a little bit of a montage of about kids talking about the projects that they've done this year. So now this is just during this year. There's a range from, again, all the way elementary, all the way through high school, where we have a variety of different schools represented talking about some of the projects that they've actually done throughout the year.
And about a couple weeks ago, we did a project called the Shark Tank, and it was where we were given an explorer, and we were supposed to do a lot of research, and then we were supposed to argue our case and about why the sharks were supposed to give us money to further our exploration. And we had to explain to them why we wanted to travel across the world, like for what purpose we wanted to go, and they would give us money depending on how well we presented our cases.
One of the projects that we worked on was a debate on the rainforest. In this project, we were given a certain group, and we studied all of the groups, but we were given a certain group, and we studied how they wanted to use the rainforest. And then we ended up debating from that group what we should use the rainforest for. We had a period-long debate and talked about what would be the best use and came up with a plan to best use the rainforest here in the next few years.
You created a poster of your own political party, and you'd also create your own, you'd say what your thoughts were on two specific issues.
We're supposed to get together and come up with an idea to teach young kids with. Our project idea was working with forest fires, so we had to figure out how to take a lesson about forest fires and teach the kids that they aren't just bad.
You were able to use your 21st century skills to find or to solve a problem that you really wouldn't think about normally.
We don't really make models, and this was a lot more interesting and fun.
This project was different because you could do what you wanted basically, and you could research topics, whatever you wanted about political parties.
It didn't require a textbook a lot, I guess, and it required you to think a lot more.
This was different than just sitting down, listening to a teacher talk, or reading a book, and it was fun because you got to do the research yourself, and you were given a point, and you could do some more with it than just reading off a book. You could study the other sites and debating with other people and talking and just building a plan, and you feel like you're actually doing something to help this problem.
It was different because we got to be more creative, and we got to make the poster our own instead of it having to be cut and dry.
It was a lot different because we were more on our own than we were in other classes, and we were able to problem solve on our own and be allowed to actually come up with our own material to teach, so we could put the way that we learn into the material so that the kids that learn the same way we do would learn.
And I really liked this because it got everyone involved.
I really liked that we had people that you wouldn't really work with normally, and you were kind of just in this group that you could just talk to people and you would work together as a big group.
What I liked about this project was that Mr. Anderson really had us think about something instead of just having us have this worksheet and fill out the answer from a textbook.
It gave me the right to think more. It gave me more freedom to think about what I want to talk about and how and to explain and elaborate. You weren't really able to be wrong on some parts. If you were to, you'd give your ideas, and then if you did it in the right format, you wouldn't be wrong.
It was way more fun than anything else.
Way more fun. What made it way more fun than anything else?
We got to
Building
build
it.
this project.
And finding all the research.
Yeah.
Okay, and what did you use to research?
We used a little bit of Wikipedia.
Books.
And, yeah, a lot of books.
Also an Ed Clapp student, and just to tell us a little bit, September, about what you liked about your project when you did the magazine project.
I liked it because we got to type up all the pages and color them with lots of different colors that you usually don't see on crayons. And I also liked it because usually we're just writing in our writing journals, but now other kids get to read what we did.
Project. We'd have to pass them around a little bit too, so. Which magazine did you work on?
I worked on the Dolphins one.
Dolphins. So as you can see, there's just been a whole bunch of different projects, K to 12, as teachers across the system have been trained in this method and really supported. And one of the things that, as we've been working with principals across the metro actually, but in our district specifically, really talking about kind of some differences between what this is and what is traditionally what we see in classrooms if I'm teaching more out of a textbook. And as you can see from these examples, there's a lot of creativity on the students' part. A lot of student voice, a lot of choice, which also creates some challenges in terms of resources as things come up. And so we've been really talking with our principals about how do we support that and really encourage our teachers to take those risks and be innovators and really say, you know what, these authentic projects are really the way we're going to get to the 21st century skills in a very authentic way versus a superficial way where we're kind of just showing them here's what communication is. No, you're really communicating. You're creating a magazine. Or you are doing an event for kids at Lindenwood Park. So those are the kinds of things that we're working on. But again, there are some challenges with that too in terms of trying to make sure that we can support that for teachers who are trying to take those risks. So. We appreciate your support in that and certainly some direct ties with what we're doing in the strategic plan as we look at 21st century skills overall and then the efforts in what we see in STEAM happening through this avenue as well. So.
Great, thank you, Ms. Tyken. Is there anything else? Okay, anybody have any questions or comments? Jim?
Well, first of all, thanks for sharing, and, you know, it looks to me like we got probably more than the 3 I'm looking at going on in the district, so kudos to everybody, staff and students both. Great things are coming our way.
I think the one thing that really struck me is there was more than once I heard students use the word fun and research in the same sentence, that was the fun part, which is incredible. I mean, I remember when I went through school, my kids went through school, a group project was usually kind of a doom, you know, one person's going to do all the work, and just to see the kids so genuinely engaged, it's really, really exciting. So thanks for all the good work and creativity you're doing. This was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this point, we have recognition of the audience. If anyone else, I don't think so. Okay, good. Staff reports. David Marquardt.
Hello. I just have one thing. The week of November 4th, we had Gene Week throughout the district, through FEA and the district. And this year we had our largest donation of a little over $4,000 that we gave to Christmas Wish 98.7. So it was exciting to give them that donation, and it shows the support that we give our families and our community. So we're very happy that that happened, and it was a great turnout. So it was good stuff. So other than that, that's all I have, and have a good break coming up.
Great, thank you, David. We are at the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion. Second. Second, moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Thank you. Authorization to defease some bonds. Jim, please.
Thank you. I think everybody's aware of the fact, we reported out in earlier meetings that we did receive at least a partial payment on the state school construction loan bond program of approximately $6 million. And those funds will then be used to defease bonds we'd already issued in conjunction with the the HVAC projects that we had going on throughout the district at our elementary buildings, and the Ed Clapp construction project of our newest elementary that's online currently. So what we have to do today is actually authorize two different resolutions, one providing for the defeasance of the certain maturities of the $26,970,000 of limited tax bonds that were Series 2014, and the accompanying escrow agreement between Fargo Public Schools and the U.S. Bank National Association. Obviously, the construction loan funds that we receive from the state will be put into the escrow account until such time as we can actually do the partial refund, which I believe comes up in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And earlier in the packets that came out over the weekend, you might have noticed there were a few blank numbers because this all got finished up today. So we didn't have the exact pennies until today, but at your work location, you should have found updated documents to go with memo number 72. In a nutshell, what this is going to do to our bottom line, we're obviously paying interest on the school construction loan from the state at 1%. We're defeasing bonds that were issued out at a much higher rate. The net savings to the district, based upon the math that we now have, is $2 million, or $2,162,328.83. Just a side note, we're still very hopeful that we'll get at least one more, if not a couple more payments out of the school construction loan fund. That's a revolving fund, and as other districts pay money back in, we're still, I think, first in the queue to receive additional funds to offset even more of these bonds going forward. But at this point in time, we simply have the $6 million plus to maximize the actual bond issues that we're going to defease. We're going to make an additional cash deposit, which will probably come out of the building fund balance of $2,436.54, which will get us to the point in time that we can defease the bonds that come up in 2019. So I guess before there are any questions, I'm going to move that we approve the resolution providing for the defeasance of certain maturities of the $26,970,000 limited tax bonds, Series 2014, and the escrow agreement between Fargo Public Schools and the U.S. Bank National Association.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, Anne Marie, please.
Goldenberg. Yes. Johnson.
Yes.
Knutson. Yes. Myers.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Paulson.
Yes.
Strand.
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you for your work on this. Monitoring of EL10, memo number 73 you have in front of you. Thank you for completing this, and those of you who made comments, is there anyone who'd like to make further comment or elaborate on the written comments at this time? Robin.
I had posed a question about open records and Connect Ed, which was number 8, and Anne Marie responded to me personally, but it might be of interest to the board to understand how we record the communications coming out over the Connect Ed services for open records purposes.
Those calls and information are saved in the system, so those are saved through Connect Ed, or it's Blackboard, the parent company, so those are saved for us.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'd entertain a motion to receive this report. Robin?
I move that we accept EL10, Communication and Counsel to the Board, as reported.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Anne Marie, please.
Johnson.
Yes.
Knutson.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Paulson.
Yes.
Strand.
Yes.
Benson.
Yes.
Goldenberg.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We are at the point already, our lives are zooming by, of committee liaison and correspondence reports. So I would like to start with Robin, who will be hosting us later this evening. So you get to go first and zoom out.
Thank you. As far as I don't have any school reports, but as far as GAC goes, pay attention. There are many district announcements coming out as far as who's going to be running for their party's nomination. Expect a couple more this week. I know of one Thursday that is forthcoming. So pay attention and maybe contact those that are in your district. I met with Pam Anderson, who ran on the platform of early childhood education. I happen to live in her district now, and she shared with me some correspondence between our board president and herself on early childhood education. So I'll share that further at the GAC meeting. There is not a GAC meeting in December, however, we'll be meeting in January. And one of the one of the GAC Governmental Affairs Committee's conversation was what happens to the NDEA days now that are required by state law to be in our calendar. And Jeff Schatz, maybe I can impose upon you to report a little bit upon your findings. Excuse me.
I inquired with Kirsten Baszler, North Dakota State Superintendent, and according to North Dakota Century Code, she has the authority to do something to allow districts to change their calendar and do whatever they want with those days. However, she is not going to do that for next year because she's had a request from the North Dakota Council of Educational Leaders to leave the days in the calendar because of the annual conference. Just because the NDEA is not going to have their conference doesn't mean that they're not going to continue to have their conference. And so I asked her, will this probably be a legislative item? And she suspects that it probably will be. And so since our calendar is set for next year already, I've talked to Bob, it would be pretty difficult for us to do something so quickly to make a change. Next year, the calendar will be as it was set, and then we'll see what the legislature decides to do. So that's kind of where it's at right now. Kirsten does not anticipate making any kind of declaration that would allow districts to do anything different than what the Century Code already states.
Thank you, Jeff. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Robin, and thank you for hosting us this year, and we'll see you soon. We'll just keep going with Paul, please.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, David?
Nor do I.
Jennifer?
Nothing to report.
Rebecca?
Last week, I did attend the Fargo Cast Public Health open house, and it was interesting to see that facility and everything that it offers the community. And then Ben Franklin had a science fair last week, also for their 6th graders. And that cafeteria and kind of the lower level of that building was packed full of all kinds of exhibits. Some very creative ones. So, and then the next communications meeting is noon, December 14th in the boardroom. That's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. John?
Nothing to report, Madam Chair.
Jim?
Planning did not have a meeting last week. As those of you on committee know, we decided to forego the meeting because we're still not finished quite yet at the administrative level with the standard of efforts report. So we'll be meeting the first week in January. SEEC has a board meeting tomorrow at 11:30 via phone conference. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Dinah?
Some of you may know that at the at the North Dakota State School Boards Association meeting this year, Jim asked me and John Martinson asked me to apply for a vacant position on the ESPB board, the Education Standards and Practices Board. It's a governor-appointed position, and there are 2 school board reps from across the state on that. And a week and a half ago, they sent me an application to fill out, and literally at 3:30 this afternoon, I got a call to say that I did get the appointment. So, and they want me in Bismarck tomorrow. So, I just wanted to let you all know that I am now a member of the ESPB board.
Congratulations, Dinah.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Is that okay? Well, you've all kind of negated something I was going to report on my report. Governance met, and I didn't even have time to eat my mint. And one of the agenda items that was brought forward was a discussion about what we're doing now, reporting out with our committee and liaison reports. And there was concern that it had gotten pretty loose and people were giving kind of lengthy reports on things that were outside of their either committee appointment or their liaison school activities. And so the recommendation comes back from governance to all of us to keep them short and concise, and unless there's something extraordinary to report on, it's not necessarily all school-related things you may have done in the last 2 weeks, but to confine your reports to liaison or committee appointments or other related things. And tonight was not one of those nights, so it doesn't really make much sense tonight, but that was our discussion at governance in part. The other thing we discussed was how we felt about the different format of reporting on, yes, excuse me.
I just want to go back to that because I was trying to think of what the actual consensus was at that governance meeting, and I'm not exactly sure it maybe have been the way we reported it. I kind of thought the consensus was try to condense things and keep them brief. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know what the rest of the people thought who were at that meeting. Jennifer, I know you were there. Rebecca, you were there. Who else was there? Jim was there.
Did I misreport?
You mean versus not sharing? Things
But
outside of our
The main consensus
liaison.
was, let's try to keep it briefer. Briefer?
But still
Or brief?
reporting on things outside. I apologize. I thought it was if there was something kind of
I'm just asking to
extraordinary.
find out what the others remember, because I know there was some discussion about that, and I'm not saying we're looking at a radical shift one way or another. I'm
Sure.
only saying I think the main consensus item was, and I could be wrong, was that let's just try to keep things briefer,
Okay.
or brief.
Thank you. Yep.
Terse.
And Rebecca and then John.
Paul, I think that was in terms of my take on overall consensus was brevity, but doesn't mean exclusion. And we're all going to have different, I might have a longer report some week than Jennifer, for example, just based on the schedule of our activities and our liaison assignments. But it seems like we had quite a bit of back and forth discussion in regard to should we stick to, for example, reports just in regard to our liaison assignments, or is it something where we might branch out just a tish bit more from that if we would maybe attend a school function that wasn't necessarily our liaison? And I think my takeaway on that is it's okay to still report on some of those activities, especially as long as we can demonstrate how the events, activities are essentially tied to the school district, and can, tie an example of how might it go in with our plans, our strategic plans, and just demonstrations. And so I do think that brevity was an overlying agreement or consensus.
Thank you. John.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I obviously wasn't at that meeting, but the role of governance is to set agendas and to create agenda items. So is this an agenda item being advanced back to the board?
I think it was, if I'm recalling correctly, a board member expressed a concern about this particular item that's already on our agenda, committee liaison and correspondence reports, and wanted to discuss it at governance with, you're right, we kind of talked all aspects of this. Should we confine it only to those items? Should we just ask board members to be concise? Should we say, certainly report on other things if you feel there's a connection and so forth? So this is basically reporting back, essentially, consensus on the discussion.
If I might continue, Madam Chair, if governance were to recommend a policy or recommend an agenda item, that would be in the purview of governance. To mete out topics like this that aren't agenda related, I just don't know how it fits the charge of the committee.
Jim.
So I'd recommend they bring it to an agenda item on the board or advance a policy accordingly.
I actually don't think I was at the portion of the governance meeting where this topic was discussed because I was at the airport at that time. But if I had been, what I would have brought up was the fact that we are talking about things out of order on our agenda. Because you'll notice on our agenda, we have a place for board reports called other reports. That's anything besides a liaison, committee, or correspondence report. So, and I understand what you're saying, John. So I guess my takeaway would be, if you go to a school event you want to report on and you're not there as the liaison, if you're not there because of a committee work that you're doing, that would fit under other reports quite nicely. And so from my perspective, I think that's really probably where we can clarify what gets covered where on this agenda, with the idea concise is always a good thing.
Thank you. Any thoughts on that? Paul?
Two thoughts. Number one, I think that could very well fit under other reports, and no sense making it into a big deal, except that I know Linda said, gee, I hate to keep going around the table time after time and category after category. So I got the impression that you kind of like the idea that, hey, when it's Jim's turn to speak, if he wants to cover another report, maybe he should do that rather than go around again, or am I misreading what you said?
Well, this suggestion wasn't brought up, so I think when we were talking about separating things, do you go around once for committees, another time for liaison, but that idea actually makes a lot of sense. If someone just simply has something to report for other reports other than our traditional other report, that works for me. Paul?
So the other half of what I was going to say is that I think it might be making a bigger deal out of small potatoes here, in that if we keep it fairly concise, there's no reason that any comment we have to make goes longer than 20 or 30 seconds, and if there's candidates who make reports or whatever, we're not looking at a great deal of time. So that's my thought anyway, is that whether it comes as another report or whatever. But I do know that one thing that Rebecca is very keen on, and that is, as part of communications, is finding ways for the board to demonstrate to the public that we are involved not only in our school district but also in our community. And so I think some of these reports, as long as we can keep them concise, are good to demonstrate that we are involved in the community. And the community is broader than just the, umpty schools we have in our district. I mean, it's a community involvement. Now, I'm not suggesting that we then turn this into a, big community discussion, but I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal if somebody talks about that. I know, John, I think you feel the same way, I believe, because I've heard your comments over the years, and so there it is.
Thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts? Well, we discussed this because it was the wish of one of the board members that we address this, and anyone is absolutely always welcome to ask governance to take up one of these subjects. I actually, here's how I'm kind of, where I would like to go forward on this. I like your idea because it's clean in terms of the agenda we already have. So let's try this in the next few months and we'll see how it works. In the future, under board reports, let's confine that to committee liaison and correspondence reports. And if you have another thing you would like to report on, I'll simply call for any other reports, not that we have to go around the horn one more time. And that would be a very welcome place for concise reports of those experiences. Any objections to that? Great, and thank you all for weighing in on that. That's very helpful. The other thing I passed out as part of governance is we did discuss how we felt it worked to have people submit written reports of their conference experiences, their school visitation experiences, and the consensus was that it was good. Because we were trying it for the first time after the North Dakota School Board's meeting, folks mentioned that it would be helpful to have some sort of structure or format. So the sheet I passed out for future conferences, it's just kind of sketched out in a little bit of an outline for you to fill out, just to kind of help with the note taking. And then at the bottom, you know, if you think it's something worth following up on, it doesn't say who's going to follow up or if it's for board or staff or whatnot, just a simple check mark and we can take it from there. And if it was, yeah, mildly interesting, but not anything to really necessarily follow up on, that's there too. So any questions on those? Those will be available for whenever we're heading out to anything. Very good. And I apologize, I don't have any written report besides that this time. So have we gone around, Dinah? Yep. Any other reports? And I'll start with John and then ask if anyone has any others.
I absolutely do, Madam Chair, thank you. Our Dr. Bob Gross's birthday is December 18th, and we're almost always not in a meeting or near a meeting when your birthday is going on. Bob, I think I've called you from other states, but happy birthday to you. We're going to be meeting the day after Dinah's birthday. So be thinking of her on your break and when you're coming back, and wonder if she had cake the day before at our next meeting. And lastly, this is another one, I'll keep it brief. If anybody runs into Rick Baresh, his birthday is December 26th.
Thank you very much. And I also have a quick thing under other. We have the Kennedy Art students to thank for our gift that was at our place today. So our public thanks to the elementary art students at Kennedy who were learning how to incorporate lights. And you want to grab yours and do a little demonstration for the world? Push the button, you get a light. Good stuff.
It's flashing the lights, and then they've created cards.
Very nice. And our thanks to Robin. Oh, yes, Dr. Arger.
If I could just give you a little bit more information on those. It was actually a STEAM project that was done out at Kennedy, and they received a grant through the North Dakota Council of the Arts for the batteries, the conductor tape, and the light bulbs. And they worked with the kids who are currently in the gifted service program right now. So it was the Mary Dizell, who is the art teacher, and Suzanne Uzelman, who is the gifted service. And they did it as a trial run, and now all third graders will have the opportunity to work on this project collaboratively, and they will be making cards that are Valentines for veterans, and they'll be delivering those in February. So,
Fantastic, thank you. Anyone else have anything at this time? Brock.
Madam President, members of the board, I'll give you a quick update on the Health Insurance Committee. As you recall, we made a decision as a district to offer a dual option health plan effective January 1st, in which employees had the opportunity to enroll in a high deductible health plan with a health savings account, and then continue with the fully funded plan that we have as a self-funded model. That enrollment ended November 30th, so this is the first opportunity you would have had to hear the results of that. We had 145 employees choose the high deductible plan with the health savings account. As you recall, we made a commitment as a district that there was a differential in premium of the two plans, and then there was a contribution at each of the various levels, single plus dependent, and family, to the health savings account as well. So right now, that's just over 10% of our population, and that is the standard that our benefit consultant told us to expect. We thought it could be higher than that, but it came in almost exactly where they saw national averages when you roll these plans out. So that is the result of the new plan that will be in effect January 1st.
Thank you. Any questions for Brock on that? Thanks for that update. Anyone else? Anything for debriefing? Yes,
Not
Donna.
just a question, really. Are we supposed to keep these, turn these back to you, the cards, or?
I will collect them at the end of the evening.
Okay, just so that we know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.